Hello fellow Blenders, this is Peter here with PM Designs. Recently I was messing around in Blender and I stumbled across this effect, this streaky effect and the lightning effect, and I thought it looked quite cool, so I made an animation. Some people liked the animation and said they'd like to see a tutorial, so that's what this is. The first thing I'm going to say is that this is a beginner-ish tutorial in that anyone can do it. It's very simple, there's no geometry nodes or anything complicated like that. Pretty simple shader setup, but you need to have an animation onto which to apply the streaks, because you don't want to just have lightning coming out of the default cube. So that's why I say beginner-ish. You need to have an animation. So just to quickly explain my setup here, my character is stationary. He's running on the spot, and my camera is stationary because I want it to have an infinite loop. So I've made the scene move instead. But this will work if you're going to have your character running along a given axis. So the first thing I need to do is make sure I'm completely happy with my run animation, my run cycle, and I don't want to make any changes to it now. It is quote-unquote perfect. You can make changes later, but it just means you're going to have to do an extra step, which is no big deal. Not too much of a big deal anyway. So I've got my Flash running. I downloaded this model from Sketchfab. I'll put a link in the description. It's quite a nice model, and it comes with a very nice shader as well. And it's just one material, which is great because I don't want to be messing around with multiple shaders. I'm just going to leave it in solid mode while I do this. So I want to duplicate my Flash rig and my Flash object, my Flash character mesh. So easiest way to do that is I'm just going to duplicate the collection. So now I have the Flash.001. I'm just going to hide the Flash for a moment, focus on the Flash.001. I'm going to change the name of this. I'm going to call it the follower. He follows everybody at the same time. And change the name of the object as well. That's more important. You don't really need to change the name of the collection, but change the name of the object is more important. So just again, the follower. So that's him done. And then so I'm going to move him out of the shot. I don't want him in my shot, so I'm going to grab him by the object, which sounds a bit dodgy, and just press G and Y. For me, Y is the forwards backwards axis, so whatever way you've got him facing, just press G and then X, or G and then Z if you want to go straight up and down. So he's fine over there. I can leave him out of the scene. That's how the follower likes to be. He wants to be unseen all the time. I'm going to keep him there for a moment just to make something easier a bit later and bring back my Flash. Okay, so that is the basic setup for getting the streaks done. Now I'm going to I can hide my Flash rig for a moment. Select my Flash object, the mesh, wherever it's gone. Yeah, the Flash, and I'm going to duplicate that by holding Shift and pressing D, and then I press Escape to drop him where he is. I'm going to change the name of this one. This one's going to be called Streaks. Okay, so if you're a bit more experienced, maybe you know where this is going. I'm going to add a modifier to Streaks. Let's hide the Flash for a moment, and it's going to be a shrink wrap modifier, and I'm going to change the wrap method to project, and the target is going to be follower. That's the only reason the follower exists, is to help create these streaks. And I'm going to switch from positive to negative, and I'm going to choose the Z or Z axis. For me, it's a different axis for you. Maybe if you've got your character, I don't know, facing a different way or something, or maybe it's about the normals. But so just play around till you find the right one. For me, it's Z or Z. So if you've never used project before, that's what this is doing. It's projecting the mesh onto the target. So yeah, you can see that's sort of sucking onto the follower over there. So if I, just to show you, I don't need the follower anymore. I can hide him completely now. He's gone. Just to show you how that shrink wrap is working. You can offset it as well if you wanted to. Yeah, so what could be quite cool is if you had the follower standing in a still position, and then you suck it onto him. So you shrink wrap your mesh onto him, and so you would see this kind of stationary guy standing in the background, and you could make him a little bit transparent, and you can see that's how the Flash started off. He was standing still, and now he's running, something like that. So you could mess with that offset a little bit. So I'm just going to leave it on 0 for now. I didn't do that in my original video, so I'm not going to do that now. That's just an idea for you. So let's do the shader for streaks. Let me go into my shading tab, And so this is the original Flash material. I don't want to affect that, so I'm going to just duplicate this one. So whatever I do to this one won't have an effect on my original Flash model. So this has become Flash TV High blah, 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 dot 001. I'm going to call it red streaks. Right. So let's show this like that. Okay. So what I want to do is create a gradient. I want to have this fade off and become transparent towards the back. So it's not just like solid blur. You know, you can do this as much as you wherever you want it to be, but I'm just going to have it right at the edge of the screen here. So I've got my original shader set up here, and the material output I've just moved over here slightly. So I'm going to add a mix shader and a transparent shader, transparent BSDF, and just pop that in to the second connection there. So this is now becoming somewhat transparent, but I want to control where the transparency is, so I need a gradient to create the mask. So gradient texture plugged in up here, a color amp to control it a little bit, and I can just pop that in there. So just for now I'm going to plug this into the main material output so we can see what's going on more clearly. So you can see there that my gradient is horizontal. I don't want it like that. I want it to be vertical. So I'm going to bring up the mapping texture coordinate node. Done with Node Wrangler. If you don't know how to use Node Wrangler, you can go and watch any other tutorial on YouTube and they will tell you how to do Node Wrangler. I'm going to use the object as the vector, and for me I'm going to rotate it on the y-axis by minus 90 degrees. So now you can see my gradient starts there, and for me black is going to be the color and white is going to be transparent, just because of the order I have here. If yours is the other way around, let's just do that. So now the black is going to be transparent and the white will be the color, which is not how I want it. Yeah, there are two ways to fix this. It's not a big deal, so it's not exactly a fix. But so if your color and your transparency is the wrong way around, you can either just switch these two or switch the black and white from the color amp over. Yeah, but I like it like this. So there we go. I've got my color and I've got my transparency over there. I want it to be quite a gradual gradient, gradual fade. So I'm just going to drag that right apart. You can't really see it in Material Preview, but if I switch over to Cycles, you can see it's pretty gradual there. There are these black kind of shading errors, these kind of artifacts, I guess. And we're going to talk about how to fix those later, because we're going to get it several times. It's just because we have multiple transparent layers over each other, so that tends to happen with your default settings. So yeah, I've got my gradient set up, but it's way too close. So all I'm going to do, you could do this with a math node to affect the color ramp control, but I'm just going to use the X location to move that back to about there. So there we go. I've got my nice streak set up, and if I, you can change the pose. If I bring my Flash character in, yeah, so you can see how that's working. Looks pretty cool. So popping back into my Material Preview, I don't like how sharp this gradient is. It doesn't matter because you can't really see it in the Cycles render, but I just want to mess around with this shape a little bit. So this is just to give you an idea of something else you could do. So I'm going to affect how the vector. I'm going to basically affect the vector of the gradient texture, so it's not a perfectly straight line. So I'm going to add in a mix RGB. Just move this up a little bit. And a noise texture. You could do this with a Musgrave, or sorry, not a white noise. Or you could do it with a Musgrave or a Voronoi or whatever text you want to do, and it will affect the gradient here. So let me just bring my gradient back over there a little bit. And now if I plug the noise in there, you can see it's broken up that perfectly straight line. And you can see there, if I adjust the scale, how exactly that's working. So this is all sort of personal preference. I just want to get it to not be such a perfect straight line. For me, I like that one, just blurred a little bit. And again, you could bring in the texture coordinate and mapping node for this, so you can adjust. I'm not going to do it, but you can adjust the X and Y and Z, scale directly, and so you could have like more stretched noise affecting that, and you could do something like that. So now I think that looks a bit better. That's just personal preference. So I've got this I think, fairly nice streak effect. Yeah, the black problems, we're going to fix that later, but let's get to work on the lightning now. So very easy to do lightning. I'm going to select my streaks object, and I'm going to hold shift and press D and duplicate it. So now I've got a new streaks object, and I'm going to call that lightning. Okay, so that does exactly the same thing. It's stretching back to the follower over there, and that's it. So I'm just going to remove this material because I want a new material, and I'm going to add a new one, call it lightning, and then just pop back into my shading tab. And I'm going to hide the streaks for a moment. This is my default lightning shader setup, so I'm going to remove the principled BSDF, add an emission shader, and a transparent BSDF, and a mix shader. Plug those in whatever order, and into the surface of the material output. I'm going to set my color to something like yellow, and let's see how that looks. Yeah, okay, that was quite a good yellow. I'm going to leave the strength of the emission at 1 for now, but when I render, or when I rendered the other day, I found that 32 looked quite good, but we'll look at that a bit later. This is going to be the color of your lightning bolt, so you set it to whatever you want it to be. I think in the new movies it's got blue lightning, but I don't like that guy, so I'm going with the TV series, kind of yellow, like that. Right, so now we need to create the mask, which is going to create the lightning bolt. So for this one, we're going to add a wave texture. Just bring that up here. A color ramp to help control the kind of degree of the lightning. Alright, so this is going to be our mask, and I need to switch this from X to Y because we're going across the Y axis. So now if I bring for me it's going to be bring the white one down. Again, it's about which way around. If you've got the transparent in the top and the emission in the bottom, then you need to move the black one. I'll do it just to show you in case you are a complete beginner. Move the black one, and that controls the transparent. Yeah, if I switch it back, move the white one, and that controls the transparent. So now I've got these yellow streaks. Now, those are too many. I'm going to bring that down to, let's try. The other day I did 1, so I'll just stick it on 1 for now, and I'm going to crank this right down because I want it to be pretty sharp. Okay, so now to create the lightning bolts, we're going to use distortion, okay, of the wave texture. So I'm just going to scroll that up, and the other day I found that 8 was quite good. I know at the moment it doesn't look good, but there are a couple more steps. And then, so we get this kind of crackly effect, but they're a little bit too smooth, so then I can affect that with the detail. So I found the other day that 9 was quite a nice number. Somewhere about 9, you get some more crackles. So again, bring in the texture coordinate and mapping node. I'm going to set this to object. Now we start to get some, I think, better streaks. It's stretching out a little bit more, quite crackly. I'm still going to tighten that up a little bit here. Yeah, there we go, something like that. And so we have these lightning streaks. That's the start of the lightning streaks. So when it comes to animating these, there are 2 things you can do. You can use the Z location here. So if I move that up, it makes the lightning streaks kind of flow backwards, which looks quite nice. Yeah, so when your flash is running, you want to have that going quite fast, so you keyframe that to be pretty fast. And you can also use the X here, which is going to affect the kind of, I call it the crackle. It's going to affect the crackle of the lightning. So I would advise having the Z location move quite a lot in your time frame, and then you have the X location move a little bit, so you get some kind of crackle going on while they're moving. Yeah, right. Let's bring back my flash for a moment. Okay, so let me find a different pose here. All right, let's go with that. So as you can see, the lightning is going off of the mesh at the top. Doesn't look great because it just looks unrealistic for the way that lightning actually flows off of people running very fast. I want it to stay within these bounds. So you can use the phase offset for that. Just move that until you get it somewhere where it fits inside, like that. So now hopefully, if I just keep, oops, sorry, that's the wrong one. If I move this on the Z-axis, it should stay within those bounds. And I personally think if it intersects with the floor, let me try and make that happen. yeah, just for example here, if it intersects with the floor, I think that doesn't look too bad because it looks like kind of residual lightning left by his footsteps. So I think that's not too bad. It's just the top looks pretty bad. I didn't fix that in my original render, and I wish I had. So there we go. I've got my lightning and I've got my streaks. Okay, so we've already talked about the black shading issue that there is, but now there's also an issue here where you can't see the lightning. Even if I bring up the emission strength of the lightning to something crazy, doesn't look particularly sharp. It's not quite there yet, and that's just because the lightning and the streaks are occupying the same space. So there's a pretty easy fix for that. With my lightning, on my lightning mesh, I'm going to add a displace modifier, which is going to go crazy, but I'm just going to set the strength at about 0.1. Okay, and we leave it on the normals. Okay, and then if I just pop back into cycles view, you'll see that the lightning is now sitting on top of the streak shader. And another cool kind of side effect we get from this is that, let me just zoom in here, the lightning now starts to wrap around. Let's move into a different pose so you can see it a bit more clearly. Alright, something like that. You can see now that the lightning starts to wrap around his arms a little bit, around his head. I think let's get a couple more streaks going on in here so we can see it a bit better. Yeah, there we go, something like that. Again, now I've got some stuff going off the top, so I'm just going to mess with the phase offset a little bit here. So about there. That's I don't like that many streaks. That's too many. But yeah, something like that. And we got the lightning bolt. We got the lightning here lined up with that thing on his head. So I think that looks pretty cool. So that's the lightning done, and that's the red streak done. So now let's fix this black shading issue. It's really easy to fix. It's just going to up your render time slightly. All you have to do is come into your render properties, come down to light paths and max bounces, and you need to increase the transparent max bounces. So I can just kind of roll this number up until the black starts to disappear. Yeah, and it should be maybe about 20. Alright, so we've got 29. Most of the blackness has disappeared. There's still a little bit here, so I'm just going to keep going a little bit more. Okay, there we go. And I've got rid of the majority of the black there. So that's what I did the other day, and I just rendered that out, and I animated the lightning moving backwards and crackling about a bit, and I think it looks pretty cool. But since that time, I've had some other ideas as to how to improve it slightly. So one thing I'm not overly keen on is how solid the red part is. So I'm just going to make it a little bit transparent, which is easy enough to do. Go into my red streaks shader, come up here, material output, extend that slightly, add a mix shader, pop that in there, and then just plug this transparent into there as well. So now it becomes a little bit more transparent, and if I bring it right up, it's completely transparent. So you can adjust that to be however transparent you want it to be. So now I think that looks just a little bit better, being slightly more transparent and blurred. The other thing I wanted to do was to have more lightning streaks coming off, but shorter ones, and sort of keep them closer to his body and much more of them. So for that one, again, pretty easy. I'm going to bring back my lightning shader, my lightning mesh. I'm going to duplicate that, Shift and D, press Escape to drop it where it is. I'm going to change the name just so it's a bit easier, lightning small. And I'm going to duplicate my shader because I don't want to affect the original lightning shader, so just like that, lightning small. So I'm going to find wherever that stuff's gone to, over here, drag out my material output a little bit over here, and I'm just going to set up a gradient again, a transparent gradient, to bring the lightning bolts in tighter up here. So I can hide my main lightning, go to my streaks, find my gradient mask, which is up here, just select all of that, Control, press C, copy, go to lightning spool, Control V, paste, easy. Add a mix shader, connect that in here, bring my transparent up into the other slot, and the mask is going to be this one. So now we're getting the mask on these. I just want to bring that mask right up, so I'm going to use the X location, something like that, and I want to have more streaks. So on my wave texture down here, I'm going to increase the scale. So I get a lot more streaks coming off him. I'm going to bring it in a little bit tighter, something like that. I can also rotate this on the z-axis to kind of match his leant forward body shape. And now that we're still going to have a problem because the lightning and the lightning small occupy the same space. Yeah, so just on the lightning small, I'm going to go to the displace modifier and set that to 0.2. There we go. And now they sit on top of the other ones. And let's bring that emission down a bit on the first one. That's too much. Try bringing this up a bit more. Something about there. Bring the emission up on those. Yeah, and I think that looks pretty good, having the sort of more lightning streaks close to his body, and then the other ones are just a bit more further away. So yeah, and now we're going to have to go and mess with our max bounces again, max transparency bounces, because we've got even more layers of transparent objects over each other. But yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. If you found that useful, please drop a like. Thanks very much.